All right, everybody. Welcome everybody to day 2. I do not start with a general introduction video that I usually would today because I've got a bunch of things set up on the other screen, studio mode wise, and so I don't want to mess that all up as we get ready for day 2 of ArvCon. I hope the Arvanauts are doing well. I hope you folks are doing well as we move forward and onwards with the event to raise money for the Damon Runyon Cancer Research Foundation. We had a great opening night last night. We raised $761. That is out of our $4,000 goal, so we're almost a quarter of the way there in just about 4.5 hours or so. But today is obviously a big push day. Day 2 of ArvCon is one of the longest days of all of them, basically tied with Sunday, I think. So Saturday and Sunday are pretty much the same amount of time. So this begins what is going to end up being ultimately over 12 hours of content when all's said and done. We got a bunch of stuff going on today, and I'm very excited for it. In just a moment, I'm going to talk about the schedule for today. But before I get there, I do want to remind everybody about what we're doing here on the channel. The only thing I'm going to say to support our channel is to suggest or to ask humbly that people follow our channel. I appreciate Red Lear having subbed to the channel. Thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate it. I hope all is well, and that everything's still going well with the still vaguely new arrival in your household. But in addition, besides that stuff, normally at this point, I would be talking about ways to support the channel beyond that, but not this weekend. Other than following the channel and asking you to subscribe over on our YouTube channel just so that you can see past broadcasts of this particular stream, I want to thank everybody for being here to support Damon Runyon, which is actually in chat, and I'm very excited for that. We're going to begin in just a moment with an interview of scientists from Damon Runyon, and I will introduce them, as I say, in just a moment. Then we're going to be moving on to Adventures in Middle Earth, Erebor Adventures. We will have about 3.5 to 4 hours with those lovely folks. Then we will be moving on to a one-shot D&D adventure with the fine players from GOG.com. That's going to be very exciting, and that's a really fun adventure, so I'm looking forward to that. And then we're going to wrap up this evening with a concert running from 8 p.m. Eastern until probably 11:30 p.m. or something like that with 4 different musicians tonight. So it's going to be great. I can't wait for it. Now, why are we doing all this, you say? It is to benefit those folks that you just saw pop up in chat, and that, of course, is Damon Runyon. This is the Damon Runyon Cancer Research Foundation, which supports the work of young researchers. And I was just saying to the scientists in the green room, one of the reasons, there's a couple reasons I support it. One, of course, is the loss of my mother, who I lost from breast cancer back in 2009. And everybody, I know so many people that have been affected. I've also lost, pets, not just people. Cancer is a scourge, and the chance for, people working to overcome and override and to mitigate the impacts of cancer is obviously important. But there are many cancer charities one could support. The reason I support this one is because A, they have a connection with Broadway and theater, which is something which is important to me on this front because my mother was an actress on Broadway in the 60s. So that's one of those reasons. The second reason, though, is that they work directly with young researchers, and they are not only a highly rated charity from Charity Navigator and places like that, with most of their money going not to overhead, but going directly to actually the charitable funds that are necessary, but also they support young people. And I have worked for much of my life with young people. Their optimism, their attitude of positivity, and of course their energy and just their innovation, the innovativeness that they demonstrate is extremely inspiring. And so I am extremely, extremely pleased to be able to run an event like this every year. It has gotten somewhat bigger every year. We have, of course, 8 corporate sponsors, numerous individual sponsors, and so many people working behind the scenes, many of whom I have already called out, but I will again thank all the mods who are going to be working tirelessly again today. Thank you to Dragonspear for making this splash screen and for handling all of the award assignments in terms of who gets giveaways for what. And of course, most of all, to thank all of you, the donators, for supporting Damon Runyon. If you want to know more about them, you should be able to type in, I think it's either !Damon or actually !ArvCon, I think might actually do that. But beyond that, if you want to know how to donate, and I hope you will, then let me tell you how to do it. We are working with Tiltify this year, and so !Donate will get you a link to the Tiltify page. If you go over there and then donate there, the name will pop up. Obviously, if you want to be anonymous, please place anonymous. And the amount of that donation will pop up. Now, the visual has been a little challenging on this screen. I'm still working on it. Speak of the devil, there it is. I am still working on getting the donation thing to work properly. So whenever you hear that fanfare sound, it means someone has donated, and I will make sure to be a part of that in every case. Holy cow! And we've had a chance to see it right now. Well, this is impressive. Before I even get any further, we have just received a donation from one Mr. Trendane Sparks in the amount of $250. So that is going to bring us from 761 up to, math, don't fail me now, 761 plus 250, calculate the 3, carry the 1, is going to be, I calculated that wrong. I have a million windows open. You have to understand. $1,011. So that brings us over the $1,000 mark. That is incredibly generous. Thank you so much, Tren. You're going to see Trendane in just a moment here. So we are up to 1,011, which is wonderful. So thank you again so much for that. And that's an example of what I mean. The generosity of the community is really unparalleled. So you will hear that fanfare. At some point, I will learn how to actually get the damn visual to show up. And when I do, you'll be able to see that on screen. In the meantime, I will simply announce that. So 1,000 out of 4,000 is 1,011 out of 4,000. Thank you, Trendane, so much. I'm really glad about that. We are over a quarter of the way to our goal. Let us keep it going, folks. Now, with that said, I am very, very pleased at this point to introduce the people that I've got here for this interview. And so I'm going to unmute myself and apologize for having interrupted them, as I may well have done. And then I'm going to unmute them. And last, I'm going to transition us over to reveal the scientists that we have with us. And you're going to see these folks actually not once but twice during the course of this weekend because they have agreed to sacrifice themselves. I mean, to play a game, which is going to be incredibly exciting on Monday. And I know that Turbo Tango, otherwise known as Mike Underwood, will be their GM and is in chat along with the Damon Runyon organization. The social media folks are here too. So let me introduce, going from top to bottom. First of all, Dr. Allison Didychuk, who is at the top of the column, Dr. Lexi von Dietzman, who is in the middle of the column, and Dr. Sukrit Singh, who is at the bottom of the column, which suggests nothing about hierarchy, whatever. It's just where the room happens to be actually on the screen. First of all, thank all three of you for being a part of this. And I'm really grateful for your using part of your weekend and your time. And I want to start by asking, and I guess I'll just work from top to bottom to begin with. What got you interested in cancer research and working in this particular field, whether it's personal, professional, some combination? What drew you to the particular research that you're doing? And maybe if you can talk a little bit in vaguely layman's terms, I guess, about what specific kind of research within the cancer research field you're doing. And Allison, I guess I will, Dr. Didychuk, excuse me, I guess I will start with you.
Study viruses, specifically a virus called Kaposi's sarcoma-associated herpes virus, or KSHV. And this is, I didn't know a thing about herpes viruses before I started my postdoc, but they are incredibly common. So we all have herpes. There's actually 9 viruses, herpes viruses that can infect humans. One of those, KSHV, can cause cancer. And I got really interested in this from a very basic kind of biology perspective, in that there are really cool molecular machines that are encoded by these viruses that allow them to replicate and produce new viruses. And I'm really interested in understanding how those machines work and trying to develop kind of the baseline knowledge so that we can develop new therapeutics, because even though we've known about herpes for decades and known that they cause human disease, there's no cure. And right. So herpes, they are really unique viruses in that once you're infected with them, you have them for life. So an example, obviously you hear herpes, you think of, herpes simplex virus, but actually things like varicella zoster virus that causes chickenpox, that's a herpes virus. And that's a great example because I got infected with chickenpox as a child. And so that means that I now have chickenpox, the virus in my body. It's lying latent and can reemerge later in life as shingles. And so that's true for all of the herpes viruses that infect humans. You get infected, you have it for life, there's no cure. And so these cause real problems in immunocompromised individuals. And so KSHV can cause cancer when you have an immune compromisation. So it is endemic in the same regions in Africa as HIV, which compromises the immune system. And so it's actually a leading cause of cancer in some regions in Africa. And so we're interested from a very basic perspective, trying to figure out how this virus works and how we can develop new drugs and target these machines.
And if I may just do one quick follow-up on that, one of the things you were talking about is the idea is a sort of on a basic level. I'm thinking about how foundational that research sounds, that the basic level of it is going to allow research to move up towards more targeted therapies and things of that nature. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm guessing it's not always easy to get investment in the basic sort of quote unquote less sexy side of this stuff, which is fundamentally critical to doing anything else. But I'll bet that's not the thing that grabs the headlines. Is that fair to say?
I think that's pretty fair to say. And that's why Damon Runyon has been so impactful, I think, in my lab and in my life, is because, I'm not out here treating patients. I'm not even, developing new drugs. I'm doing the very basic things that eventually, decades down the road, we can then target. So it's super important to do that research as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm going to come back to the Damon Runyon part of this equation in a little bit. Well, I guess, Dr. von Dietzmann, if I can talk to you next about that, about your own research and what kind of brought you to it. And maybe, again, if you can talk a little bit about some of the specifics of what you're doing in a way that laymen will be able to follow.
Yeah, no, of course. Thanks, Greg. I'd like to echo, I think, a lot of what Allison was saying, in that I actually didn't think I would end up in cancer research at all. So in grad school, I was in a chemistry department, and I was focused on making, fancy microscopes that could get very high resolution pictures of where molecules were in a given medium, and spent it all thinking about, okay, where do proteins go in bacteria? But what I realized when I started doing my current research was that, there are a lot of questions where that can be really important. And so I've moved to studying now how proteins are organized and coordinate DNA damage responses in a system that actually really closely parallels what goes wrong in breast cancer. And so, breast cancer, there's a gene called BRCA1, which, maybe people have, used 23andMe and other things and kind of are checking this out for themselves. But it's one of the things that can make people susceptible to it. And what goes wrong there is issues with this thing called homologous repair, where two chromosomes can use each other as templates and repair all the insults that happen, to our DNA every day. And so what I do in my work is I study this process in not humans, but a much simpler system, these little, nematode worms that are, about as thin as a strand of hair. And so I zoom into those and look at how all these molecules of DNA repair enzymes can find their right target and coordinate where they are on chromosomes using these fancy microscopes I developed earlier in my career. And so it's a fun project because it's this thing that's totally different from anything that's going on in a human, at least superficially. This tiny little worm, we grow it in a dish. This is something that's in the reproductive tract of this organism. It's not related to cancer at all. But all these mechanisms, all these processes that are happening at the molecular level are really deeply conserved. Worms have this gene that's exactly homologous to the BRCA1 gene that goes wrong in humans. And so it's a really nice way to have a simple system where I can study all these things that would be impossible to look at in a human. And so again, there's a couple different steps of translating that, but that's the idea.
That's really interesting. And just before I go on, I wanted to acknowledge Paul Weimer with another $5 donation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to bring us up to 1016 out of 4,000. And one thing I want to note is last year we had Dr. Balint Kasich, I believe is how you pronounce the last name, who was one of the folks who did our, as you folks are doing, scientists, and then part of the interview and then the game on Monday. But his fascination was about ants and about ant structures and about how that sort of plays into cancer molecule structures. It was incredibly fascinating. I was thinking about the same thing, that what you're describing does not immediately come to mind as I go and study worms so as to figure out processes that will eventually translate upwards. So I guess I would ask as kind of a follow-up to this, sort of what Allison was talking about in terms of, in Allison's case, the baseline research here. But in your case, it sounds like you're talking about something which, again, would not immediately leap off the page as clearly this is the thing we fund to do this. The way you've described it makes incredible sense, but I'm wondering, was Damon Runyon then part of was it an organization that was uniquely able to kind of go, this obviously is something that we ought to support, which might have been more difficult in other contexts? Or can you talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that being able to fund basic research that uses model organisms like the one I use is
Yeah.
a really fantastic way for Damon Runyon to approach funding. And I know I got to speak to actually some of the committee members there who are really enthusiastic about maintaining that kind of research. And it's been a powerful model in biology for so long now. You know, there's all these processes that are impossible to look at in a human, but all of our understanding is derived from yeast, worms, of course, mice, when we get more sophisticated.
Right.
And you know, being able to get that support really early on and be like, no, this is cancer related was a huge boost as a, you know, someone coming in from chemistry and realizing actually these weird questions that don't seem to have that relevance are absolutely appropriate for this kind of research, you know, really, really has helped drive my path forward in this direction.
That's really cool. That's really
Mhm.
awesome. Let me move down. Last but certainly not least, Sukrit, if I may, same question I suppose to you, which is about
Yeah.
again your own sort of journey here, about what got you interested in cancer research, and then maybe if you could talk a little bit about the specific focal points that you have in your own work.
Yeah, first off, thanks for having me here. It's lovely to be here and talk about all this. But not unlike the other two speakers, I came to cancer research sort of in a roundabout way through quantitative biology and computational biology. So I am a biophysicist by training, and a lot of my work revolves around studying the atoms within proteins and how they actually interact with one another
Okay.
at the very small scale. And so we use a lot of the main approach that I use is to use molecular dynamics and molecular simulation. So on a computer to actually apply Newton's laws of motion and to watch atoms within proteins move around over time. And as they change shape, it's kind of like a computational microscope where you build these atomic resolution models of the different protein shapes a protein adopts. You can learn a lot about its behavior, about what states are maybe targetable with drugs, maybe to explain a lot of other interesting or disease relevant properties. The one fun part about it for us is, for me especially, is that these calculations are computationally incredibly expensive. So to run anything like these kinds of simulations, it would take a gaming desktop 100 years to collect a useful amount of data
Wow.
of these protein shapes. So what we have done, and this was a part of the lab I did my PhD in, is I'm part of a consortium called Folding at Home, where folks around the world can download an app that we have created, and you know, I'm just plugging it here now, I guess. But the Folding at Home app allows us to send work units. So we break up the simulations into small chunks, and every chunk gets sent out into the world for people to run and run simulations for us, and then we can collect that data. And so that way we're able to collect data on a scale that we've never been able to do before. And so it's incredibly fun that way, where we're able to generate a lot more data with sort of this crowdsourced citizen science effort, where a lot of folks can just use, you know, download it and run the app, you know, when their computer's on overnight, and if they leave it plugged in overnight and stuff. And so then on the use side, this brought me to sort of cancer research in particular, because there's so many interesting questions and so much room to understand optimal, like how to optimally pair patients with the appropriate treatment in
Okay.
cancer in particular.
Okay.
And so that's kind of my big focus is how do certain cancers, particularly those in non-small cell lung cancer, which is one of my focuses, it have mutations that are resistant to existing therapies. And so if we can understand why these mutations act the way they do, we can start optimal, you know, planning around them and optimizing around them.
That's I'm aware whenever I do this event and I speak to some people about this, that I just sort of get through that, and for a moment I'm like, I'm just gonna marvel at the level of intellect and innovation and improvisation that I've just heard combined in three people. That's astonishing. And I guess in your case, the thing that strikes me is we heard two very sort of different forms, obviously both critical to exploring cancer. And then you are also talking about something which is enormously important within the research, but is quite different than what I've just heard from the other two scientists. And so I'm wondering then again about that. I guess speaks to Damon Runyon's overall capacity, right? That they can sort of see each one of the values of these things and are capable of funding and supporting this work on different pathways. Is that, would you kind of go along, I guess, with that about how Damon Runyon's done that?
Yeah, no, one thing that really excites me about, and what I'm really thankful with Damon Runyon is they fund not just, they fund such a variety of different projects. So so in my case, they fund a lot of computational work, and they're recognizing the role that kind of quantitative and physical sciences can play, and computational sciences can play in the future of cancer research, and how much of an opportunity there is nowadays with the computing power we have around the world, with the kind of technology we have available at our fingertips for everybody to get involved. That they're kind of leading the way in many ways in funding sort of computational research, particularly for cancer, but also setting a model of like we should, as scientific bodies, fund these kinds of computational sciences more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm struck as I'm listening, as I'm watching my mods and so forth kind of put the links to the app that you just mentioned, that, in case people within the sound of my voice are obsessed with wasting their time on useless items like mining for crypto, let me tell you about a positive thing you can do with your computer that doesn't involve destroying the planet. Save some people while you're at it. That's really awesome. I guess I will work up in the other direction then. And I'll start with you, Sukrit, to ask a little bit. We talked a bit here about Damon Runyon's approach. I'm wondering if you can also talk a little bit, because I was struck by people were talking about different retreats and contacts, and we're speaking to each other about their research, and you were doing some of this in the green room. I'm wondering about the interactions that you have with your own cohort or with other Damon Runyon scientists about I don't want to lead you to it. Well, yes, of course, but I'm just curious about the networking aspect of connecting you with scientists in Damon Runyon or connected with Damon Runyon in collaborative ways. I know you're working on your own stuff too. Is there an opportunity for and collaboration with others that is helpful to you in your work that something like Damon Runyon facilitates?
Yeah, I mean, I confess I'm a first year fellow, so I'm still very new to the foundation, and still I'm going to dive more into it, and I'm excited to do so. So, but no, they have a retreat regularly where folks can meet up and talk science and talk about what they're working on. Particularly, someone else mentioned that it's not just junior fellows, but junior and senior fellows overlap. So people who are just starting off can see sort of where the end point leads. So that's really exciting. And oftentimes there's also other opportunities at various conferences and stuff to then meet up on and follow up on those kinds of directions as well.
Okay. Yeah, and the thing you mentioned about senior fellows struck me because there are a lot of Nobel Prize winners, as you know, among those folks. So that's something which is pretty helpful, I imagine, as motive. Well, it worked out for me, as you can see. That's really great. Let me ask Dr. von Dietzmann, Lexi, about this too, about the connections and contacts that you make with other scientists. And if you want to talk more broadly about this, again, I'm not trying to lead you to a particular answer, but I am curious about scientists in collaboration with each other, and how that can occasionally allow people to bounce research concepts and ideas off each other, if you found that was facilitated through this too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I think that that's a really fundamental, part of how we do our work is we're not all toiling away in laboratories. It's actually, most of our work is really, really deeply social, whether it's reviewing papers or mentoring others or just kind of bouncing ideas off of each other. And so being able to, go out and meet other fellows at retreats or, fun events like this has been, really a huge benefit of the program. And it interfaces also with a lot of other things that are, going on as far as like our ability to bring scientists together. And so I was actually just mentioning in the green room earlier, through the Damon Runyon, I got to meet, a really, fantastic set of scientists, including Kara McKinley is a scientist in the program who was able to start up a similar, kind of mentorship and, conferring and, communicating program called Leading Edge, which brings together, women and non-binary postdocs in a variety of biological sciences. And so Damon Runyon was a great platform for me to meet her and get involved in that community. And then that will, keep, allowing me to find other opportunities to meet other scientists doing, other programs elsewhere and so on and so forth. So it's not only a really fantastic network in and of its own right, it's a really recognizable gold standard for good research and, a really great way to meet people, but also, is really well connected to all the other opportunities we have as scientists to go out and meet each other and interface.
That's great. And I want to thank very quickly Configuration Queen for gifting a sub to my channel, the Damon Runyon. I'm very happy to have them on board with the quill, so to speak. Thank you, CQ, for doing that. That's a good idea. Okay. Last but not least, I'll come up to Allison, to Dr. Didychuk. If you could talk a little bit about that same thing, about this question of, I guess, collaboration. I'm struck by this too, because as I said, I'm a college professor. I have a doctorate, but I am in the humanities, and a lot of times we do try to do collaboration, and obviously this channel is very heavily about community and collaboration. But we also sometimes have this issue of being kind of individualists a bit in terms of the way that our research gets done. Yes, you can do, group style articles and so forth, but in the sciences, of course, there's much more of this. In the humanities, it tends to be more that you're working more on your own. So I'm curious for you, if you could talk a little bit about the collaborative aspect of this, to the extent that there is one perhaps for you in science, and, to the degree to which Damon Runyon may or may not have facilitated that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Damon Runyon and the connections that it brings works on a lot of different levels, right? Like it's great to go to meetings. It's great. I actually met my collaborator, even though we work on the same campus. The first time I met her was at a Damon Runyon retreat, just because it's a relatively large campus. And so like there's that kind of level of direct, things get, being in the virtual space is great because it's a lot, you can have more people from more areas and it's more accessible, but there's nothing like meeting people in person and talking about science over those kinds of, over drinks or over posters or whatever. And so that is super powerful. And it's powerful because, normally we're so stuck in our own silos. Like I go to virology meetings. And so it's really powerful to go to a meeting where you span, microscopy and computational biology and, have elements of virology. So getting to see that kind of big picture of like the best science from all of these different areas is really, it helps you think about things in a different way. That is really powerful. The things that I love about Damon Runyon and getting to go to the retreats are also, getting to meet with people that have been affected by cancer. Like that's super powerful. On a day-to-day basis, I'm running Westerns, I'm running gels, I'm culturing my cells, and it's kind of easy to lose the big picture that this is why we're doing this.
Yeah.
And so that's always super powerful. And then the connections that Damon Runyon makes just from pure name recognition is really powerful too. Like this, they have a very storied history of, funding great science. And that is super powerful as a young scientist.
And, I was struck a little bit. I teach at a university, and I've always been struck by the kind of principle behind the university is bringing various colleges together and colleagues within those places from different, as you say, silos, but bringing them together towards one universal pursuit of knowledge and hopefully helping the world and human communities. So I always like to hear stories like that about the bringing together, first of all, of beginning state to end state, like the cancer patient in a way being the end state user, but also bringing together colleagues that are collectively rowing the oars to move the ship down the water. And I love to hear stories about that. And so I was interested to hear how you folks were connected to that. All right. Well, we have about 4 or 5 minutes left, so that will give me a chance to ask what is clearly the most important question that I think is critical and that everyone in chat is waiting for. And that is, of course, games. And so I will start, Allison, with you on the top and then work back down. If you could tell us your extensive history with tabletop, I'm just kidding. But if you could talk a little bit, I guess, just briefly, do you have this when they approached you and like, hey, play games with us? Were you like, oh God, no? Or, yeah, sure. I'm curious about what experience, if any, you have in playing these games. And are you excited / anxious or nervous for Monday and playing this game?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely the least experienced of the group. My partner and I, we had a little game by ourselves, 7 years ago that we tried to do. So I'm really looking forward to, being in it with more professional people. And so I'm very excited about it, although I'm distinctly anxious about it. So excited, but anxious, super yeah, pleased to meet everyone and get to do this.
Awesome. Yeah, it's going to be great. You are in good hands. Turbo Tango in our chat, Mike Underwood, is a very good GM and will lead you through this in very powerful ways. And my chat will all be well behaved. No, they're all amazing people. And I do, among my chat, have themselves multiple cancer survivors. And I wanted to mention very quickly, that's another thing, is not just those who have passed away for whom we do this in their memory, but to honor those who have survived, many of whom have survived because of the research that's being done here. So anyway, they will be very friendly and supportive, and it's going to be awesome to watch you do this. Lexi, same question to you. Your extensive or not game experience, and then what are you excited for / nervous about for Monday?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I guess I would say it's previously more extensive, and since the pandemic, it's been a little harder to make it work online, which is, why it's always so great to have opportunities like this where we can actually make that work over, Roll20 or whatever. But yeah, no, so I actually, my current position is in Salt Lake City, Utah. So I didn't have very many friends here when I was getting started. And so for me, it was actually really important to have those social connections. And so those last couple of years it was really important for me to go out and meet people. So I actually, went to Big Bad Con out on the West Coast.
Sure.
It's a big RPG convention.
Sure.
And so had previously a bit of experience, but it was really my time of getting into story games, a lot of kind of new school freeform LARPs and things like that.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I'm usually, I think, A Quiet Year is one of the easiest and best games to just lay out, but I do really appreciate things that are a little bit more rules forward. And I understand we might be playing Heart on Monday, and so I'm really excited to try that one out. I haven't done it before myself, and really looking forward to cracking into it.
Yeah, it's going to be great, and yeah, again, Mike is has very extensive knowledge of a bunch of different systems, including this one. So it's going to be great, and I'm excited for that. And yeah, I know Big Bad Con very well. I've never been there myself, but I have several people that I play with that are always talking about how great it is. So that's good stuff. Sukrit, last again to you. Same question. Your extensive knowledge in the process of doing a bunch of the computer modeling. I assume you had a chance for extensive tabletop play. I don't know. I'm just making that up. But what experience do you have in it, and what are your sort of thoughts, fears, and excitements or concerns about Monday?
So I played Dungeons and Dragons quite a bit. That's been a lot of my experiences come from that. I played a little bit with some friends in college, and then in grad school was able to actually be the DM for a group in grad school as well, which was nice because I got to kind of get a lot of experience with tabletop RPGs that way and learn about all these cons and stuff. I confess that my lack of I pretty much only have experience with D&D 5e at this point though, so I'm excited to try out all kinds of different systems, including Heart on Monday. So that's one thing I'm particularly excited about is a whole new system, whole new kind of setup and mechanic, and something a little different than what I've seen before.
Yeah, that's going to be great. And, Mike is often preaching the gospel of change off of D&D. Here's all this amazing other stuff. Yeah. So you will get the chance to see that in this process. I guess last thing I will ask all of you, and I've been bouncing up and down the column, is just quickly where folks can find you. Now, I've tweeted out your Twitter handles and so forth, but still, where folks can find you online, and if there's anything in particular you want to mention that I haven't asked so far quickly about either Damon Runyon or your own stuff that people should know. Before I do that, the big fanfare means that we have gotten... Well, we have gotten another $250 donation from Configuration Queen. Thank you, Configuration Queen. This is a record, by the way, for the scientist interviews, which admittedly have been going on for only 2 years. But still, there is a lot of money that has been raised. And the most important thing about this is bragging rights at these retreats that we're talking about. That brings us up to $1,266 out of 4,000. Thank you so much, Configuration Queen. CQ in chat was also, I believe you said, did you say you were at the National Institutes for Health, CQ? Studying as a cancer researcher? Remind me, please, because I know you said something and chat was rushing up. So you were at NIH. So, okay, like I said, I have the best viewer base on Twitch, okay? I'm just saying right now. These are such great people. You were coding for NIH. Man, So many smart, good people doing good things. Anyway, thank you, Configuration Queen, for that. So, sorry about that. But when I hear that fanfare, I got to go talk about the number. Sucrit, we'll start with you and then work back up. Where can people find you online and on anything else you want them to know quickly?
So I'm on Twitter. My handle is SucritSing92, just first name, last name 92. If you're curious about folding at home and any of that, it's also on Twitter on at folding at home. So you can see the latest we're doing with cancer research and beyond there as well. But that's mainly it.
Awesome. Thank you again so much for being here. I'm excited for Monday. Lexi, same question to you. Where can people find more about you online, etc., and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it sounds like you've got the Twitter handle out there, which is the main thing. I've been trying to motivate myself to go out there and build a website with information on my projects and what I'm up to. But that's, one of the most common procrastination tasks that I have. So that's on the table, but mostly if I'm posting anything about science or what I'm up to, that'll be where to find it. And if I do have anything else to say, then I'm sure I'll be, putting that up there soon.
Awesome. And again, thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to seeing you during this game on Monday. And last, certainly not least, Allison, same question to you about where folks can find you online.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Dr. Diduchuk. And you can also find information about my lab, which is starting July 1 at diduchuklab.org. Happy to talk about viruses. I love herpes, which is what I have the most experience in. But if you have any virus questions, DM me.
I mean, listen, with a tagline like "I love herpes," I can't imagine why people wouldn't be all over absolutely wanting to be in contact.
Herpes is forever.
Yeah, that is deeply. As someone who has had chickenpox myself, that's a very troubling thing I'll be thinking about all day. I am so grateful to these scientists, not only for this interview and for the game they're going to play with us on Monday, but for the work that they do, which seriously has major impact. I know you're told that all the time, but I really don't want it to be just a tagline, but a true statement. So thank you genuinely for the work that you do. And chat, can we get some love for these scientists who you will see again on Monday and will be super supportive of when they are? And that is Dr. Allison Diduchuk, Dr. Lexi von Dietzman, and Dr. Sucrit Singh. Allison, Lexi, Sucrit, thank you all so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I will see you folks on Monday. Bye-bye for now. All right. And as we transition over, good stuff, folks. Man, that was really enjoyable. I love talking to the scientists for obvious reasons. Who is more important? Why, than other than the patients that they are helping, who's more important than the scientists in this regard? So thank you to them and, of course, to Damon Runyon. Now, what we are going to do now, so first of all, thank you, chat. 1,266. That means we made over $500 in about a half hour, maybe 35 minutes. So great work there, everybody. And let's keep it up. If we keep on this pace, we're going to be well over 50% by the end of the day towards the goal, and we're going to keep rocking it. So thank you everybody so much for being part of this. What I'm going to do now, I have most of this set up already because I did so beforehand, but I want to go and get everything set with the Adventures in Middle Earth folks. And so to do that, I have to do a couple of things, including fixing Twitch and doing some other stuff. So I'm going to set us up here. Actually, not yet. I'm going to set us up here. I'm going to leave you folks just alone for just a couple of minutes. And in the meantime, I hope everyone will continue to donate, talk amongst yourselves, and don't leave. Please, while you're waiting here, do me a favor and please tweet out the hashtag with a message about these events. Hashtag ArvCon 2022. Hashtag ARV, capital CON 2022. All one word together. Please make sure you put that stuff out. And then we want to make sure that we get as many people in here as possible. The larger group that we get in here, the more excitement there is, the more that donations play off each other, and the more that we can continue to push forward in fighting in common cause together. So please spread the word about it. Let people know in all of the social networks you have, and please stick around. I will be back to you folks in just about 5 minutes, maybe a little less if I can, with the Andronauts as we move on with Erebor Adventures. So hold tight. I'll be right back.